I'd just like to do a quick a summary on why we believe that the policy to stop the minimum wage increase in California is a bad idea. And just, I'd like to talk about what my previous opponent said about reducing the cost of living in California as a means to help with instead of raising minimum wage. However, he kind of went on this long tangent on all the things we would need to do in order to help with that. So we'd have to reduce the cost of living, but with rising population, it's very unlikely that the cost of living in a heavily populated state such as California is going to reduce. And he also said if we can't do that, we should decrease the cost of schools. That's not even, that's a whole nother debate. But that seems like a lot of work when there's already a law in place to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour in California, and then they would like to stop it. However, I understand that they believe that there is negative effects to that, and I just want to go over a couple more points why that's a good thing. So the wage increase leads to a higher quality of life for low-wage workers, as we've talked about. Families are able to afford housing costs more easily. They take home more money. They don't have to worry about, where their food's going to come from, if they can pay their bills, and that's something that we've stated through our whole argument. And another thing is that they are talking a lot about how it's going to affect the economy, but the current plan to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour in California has a kind of a fallback on it. So this is NBC Southern California talking about the governor signing the $15 minimum wage bill. The plan also gives the governor the ability to temporarily halt the raises if there's a forecasted budget deficit of more than 1% of annual revenue or due to poor economic conditions such as declines in jobs and retail sales. So if we're really worried about there being a decline in unemployment or a rise in unemployment rates, that's being accounted for. If that happens, the governor is able to stop this plan in the middle of its tracks, no questions asked. He can stop it and put it on a pause to make sure that conditions improve. So I know my opponents have argued that there's going to be higher unemployment rates and employers are going to have to deal with this in a negative way, but that's been accounted for in the plan that's already in place. And I just want to reiterate one more time that the minimum wage hasn't really gone up with inflation like it's supposed to. Minimum wage is supposed to raise as inflation rises, and it hasn't done that since 1968, just like my advocates stated. So it's important for us to continue with that trend because that's the purpose of a minimum wage. That's what it was intended to do. Once again, the employers have a lot of channels to adjust for the minimum wage increase. And something that might be a little taboo to talk about is that a raise in the minimum wage won't necessarily have to raise prices. It may just decrease profits slightly for companies, and I mean slightly, but it will increase employment options. So Robert Reich, a chancellor's professor of public policy at the University of California at Berkeley, stated that most low-wage workers aren't young teenagers. They're major breadwinners for their families, and many are women. And they and their families need a higher minimum. A 15-hour minimum is unlikely to result in higher prices because most businesses directly affected by it are in intense competition for consumers and will take the raise out of profits rather than raise their prices. But because the higher minimum will also attract more workers into the job market, employers will have more choice of whom to hire and thereby have more reliable employees, resulting in lower turnover costs and higher productivity. So I think that it's important to see that there are a lot of options for employers and a lot of benefits to employers with the raise of minimum wage. Where my opponents say that people are going to get laid off, they won't have jobs, and that where people are just going to be out of work. However, it's going to encourage people. The raise in minimum wage will encourage people to get into the workforce, work harder, and companies aren't likely to raise their costs because they don't want to lose consumers. They're likely to just accept slightly lower profits when, again, my opponent quite a while ago talked about how small, I think it was $40 billion is in the state of California. So if we're talking about how little $40 billion is in the state of California, they are able to accept less wages.